What's up, everybody? It is LE from the WFT Declassified podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the 10 most underrated players in the history of the NFC East. I'm going to qualify that by saying I'm talking about modern history. I'm not talking about the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, etc. I wasn't born, neither were my parents, so I can't speak to that. If you have your opinions on those, please leave them in the comments. Get at us on Twitter at DeclassifiedWFT. Whatever you got to do, let's talk about it. We're here for the conversation. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on all platforms, including YouTube. Let's get started. Number 10, I'm going to go with a guy named Alvin Harper, who was a wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s. Listen, this guy averaged 18 yards a catch for his career and 8 receiving touchdowns in 1994. It doesn't sound like that much nowadays, but trust me, the league was different back then. And he was playing with some of the greatest receivers of all time. Factor that in. That's a great stat. That's a great number. He was a good player for a long time. He doesn't get any respect, so he's number 10 on my list. Number 9, Brandon Jacobs, New York Giants. Brandon Jacobs was a running back. The dude was huge. He dominated the NFC East on the ground for a long time. He was a physical player. Your defense didn't want to tackle him. He had 4.5 yards per carry for his career, 60 touchdowns. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. The dude was serious, man. If you remember those games during his era, everything on TV was about Brandon Jacobs, trucking everybody in the hole. Number 8, New York Giant tight end, Jeremy Shockey. Yes, I have back-to-back New York Giants on my list. Jeremy Shockey was a baller coming out of Miami, and he got off to a really good start. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2002. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, 37 receiving touchdowns in his career. Nobody talks about Jeremy Shockey anymore, though. I don't know why. But you know what? For me, he's number 8 on my list. Number 7, Troy Benson, Philadelphia Eagles. This guy made the Pro Bowl 5 consecutive years. He was a first-team All-Pro, and he's one of the most intelligent players you'll ever see, especially playing defensive back and safety. Troy Benson was a smart dude. He was also a great football player. Another name that doesn't come up when we're talking about the really great secondary players, but he should be. He's number 7 on my list. Number 6, Stephen Davis, running back for the Washington Redskins. Yes, I said Redskins because that's who he played for. It was not the Washington football team at that time. Now, let's go. Stephen Davis, back-to-back Pro Bowl seasons, 17 rushing touchdowns in 1999. 4 to 5 years, he was over 1,350 yards rushing. That's no small accomplishment. Stephen Davis was an absolute baller and one of my favorite players of all time. He was not expected to be that great coming out of college. He was drafted as a fullback. He converted to running back, and he got the chains moving. Stephen Davis was an absolute stud. Number 5, Lashawn Mccoy. Now, most of you guys have probably heard of Lashawn Mccoy, and you're familiar with what he did, but nationally, I don't think he gets the respect that he probably deserves for how good he actually was. He was a 2-team, first-team All-Pro player, 6-time Pro Bowler. He had 1,600 yards in 2013, and at one point in his career, the guy was being compared to Barry Sanders. Imagine that, somebody being compared to Barry Sanders. The dude cut on a dime, hence his social media name, but he was just absolutely fantastic, especially catching screens out of the backfield. That dude was in control of the NFC East for a long time when the Eagles were good. Number 4, London Fletcher, Washington Redskins, 4-time Pro Bowl linebacker, 2,039 tackles in his career, NFL Ironman, never missed a game hardly. He was popping you if you were coming through the hole. And I tell you what, his stats are very comparative to Ray Lewis. He just doesn't get the same accolades and acclaim because he's not the vocal mouthpiece that Ray Lewis was. But London Fletcher was an extremely good linebacker for a long time. Number 3, Donovan Mcnabb. Donovan Mcnabb is probably more hated in Philadelphia than anywhere else. I really don't understand why. He kept them in contention most years. He took them to a Super Bowl. Now, they didn't win it, but he took them to a Super Bowl. Donovan McNabb was an absolutely great quarterback in this league. Now, there's this perception here that he threw into the ground all the time. He did that sometimes. I think that's a bit overrated. Now, 220 passing touchdowns with the Eagles, 37,000 passing yards in his career, and a career 85.6 passer rating. You guys cannot dismiss that. Donovan McNabb was a very good quarterback in this league. Number 2, Kirk Cousins, Washington Redskins. Now, if you ask me, I'll say Donovan McNabb was better than Kirk Cousins, but nobody gets disrespected more than Kirk Cousins. Now, I'm not the biggest Kirk Cousins fan, I'll be honest with you, but he is a very good quarterback. Now, in his time in Washington, he's involved in that mix-up with RG3 and drafting both quarterbacks. That's not his fault. Now, did he play a role in the drama? Absolutely, I believe he did. But he's still a good quarterback on the field, and we have to account for that. Is he Mr. Clutch? Absolutely not. But you know what? Not a lot of quarterbacks are. Give the man his respect, put some respect on his name. And number 1, Tony Romo, quarterback, Dallas Cowboys. It pains me to say that, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but Tony Romo was really good. Tony Romo is remembered now for his broadcasting ability, which I think are pretty good, but he was an excellent quarterback for a long time. Did he make the clutch plays just like we asked about Kirk Cousins? Not always, but he always gave you a chance when you played with Tony Romo, and especially if you played against him, you were always concerned about Tony late in the game. Now, 4-time Pro Bowler, 9th best passer rating in league history. Think about that, folks. 34,183 passing yards for his career. Tony Romo was a certified baller who doesn't get any respect, and I don't know why, because he played in Big D, like of all places. So you would think that he would, by default, get respect for being a Cowboys quarterback the way that the media loves the Cowboys. But anyway, that's my list. Make sure you're subscribed. If you have anybody that you think I left off, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Later, guys.